looking into your music, checking it out, phenomenal stuff. You guys really fused the early funk and 60s R&B with a psychedelic rock sensibility. How did that come about? What was the impetus behind that? That was just stuff you were listening to? That was what was moving you, or what?
Well, most of it was driven by the fact that when we looked around, we didn't want to be like the other bands we saw locally, which were mainly cover bands that wore little funny looking little uniforms that looked like waiters, and they all dressed alike. And
the processes and everything.
Yeah, we didn't want to be like that. And besides, we wanted freedom in what we were doing. So we started out from the very beginning trying to do original music. We already knew how to play covers, but we knew we couldn't get very far doing that. So, and plus we were influenced by a lot of rock players of the time. We were influenced by groups that are kind of obscure, like Ultimate Spinach. We were listening to stuff like that, you know, and so we thought that by fusing rock and R&B and funk, we had more creative room just to kind of do things musically that we liked. We didn't want to be just an R&B cover band that played in a club and we all wore little funny looking little clothes and we all looked like little clones. We thought that was corny.
I think it's really interesting that you guys' stuff predates George Clinton's own experiments and moving in that direction himself. Something I'd read was really interesting too, noting that Indianapolis is kind of almost exactly midpoint between Detroit and New Orleans. Were you conscious of musical influences coming from both of those places while you were here that you were incorporating?
Well, we did. We were actually, when we were playing on the East Coast, we actually ran into George Clinton, Paul Funkadelic, and they influenced us a lot, but in terms of being original, but they also got us in a lot of trouble because we were staying in Boston and we were on the 10th floor hotel. Paul and Funkadelic was on the 13th floor, and they were having these wild parties. They were throwing mattresses out. Just throwing all kinds of stuff out the windows. They were doing all kinds of spicy things in the hallway. So the management got mad and put all the musicians out. So I said, well, I said, it's those guys upstairs. He said, look, they called us band boys. I said, oh, you band boys, get on out of here. So we all had to leave. So the upside was we thought the Paul Funkadelic was cool, but we didn't like the fact that they got us put out of the hotel.
Right. That sounded from what I heard that wasn't the first time another band was catching you flack when you guys were in LA. You guys were living right where Rufus.
We used to live a cat corner from Rufus, 756 North Sweetser. Rufus lived sort of diagonal across the corner. Now this was before Chaka Khan had joined Rufus, but they were still Rufus. And we were practicing in our garage and they were practicing in their garage. Well, the cops would show up and they would come to our house. We would tell them, oh look, it's those guys over there, they're the ones who are doing all that. And so we kind of got blamed for making a neighborhood disturbance, and it really wasn't us, it was really Rufus. And I became really good friends with the bass player, Bobby Watson. He took me out to the Silver Vega factory in North Hollywood, got me fixed up with a real nice bass cabinet. Then he later took me to the acoustic plant right outside of Southern LA and got me a deal and got me 2 brand new 360 cabinets with a powered head. So, it was a time of discovery. This was when a lot of things now that are in place were being newly formed then.
Speaking of, when you're breaking out of the norm of what was expected from R&B group or what have you, here in Indianapolis, were you ever met with hostility, puzzlement, what you were doing, the sound, the clothes, anything?
Man, we had so many haters. We had haters, man, but they were just coming out everywhere. To be honest, we received a lot of criticism because we were so different that the other groups just thought we were foolish, and at first it kind of made us we were a little like depressed because we were thinking, wow, we thought what we were doing was good, and it was, but because we were so different, it opened us up to ridicule. But the upside of that was, when I was talking with my man out here, E-Curve, the people that criticize us and hate us actually fuel our desire to succeed. So we just did it even harder. So after a while, we started getting more people coming to where we were playing at than the haters. So they started mimicking us. And as soon as they would imitate something we did, we would stop doing it. So if they showed up, if we had blue jeans on with one white leg and one gray leg or something, and they started doing it, man, we would cut the legs off the pants. We would immediately change to another style of dress or music or approach.
I think there's a lesson in that for everybody. Am I right?
I have hot transplant.
Very, very dope song. The story behind that is awesome. So the mayor was having a contest?
Yeah, he was having a contest. It was an anti-drug campaign.
Okay. This is when?
This was in like summer of 1968.
So this is like before you guys had the renown around here?
Well, we were just getting established as a group. This goes back so long ago that this is like, at this time, Luger, believe it or not, was the mayor of Indianapolis at that point. Steve's laughing because he remembers it. Yeah, he wasn't a senator or anything like he is now. He was the mayor of Indianapolis.
Okay. And you guys submitted this song.
Yeah.
And it beat everybody else out for it.
Yeah, there were several other groups, local groups. Most of them did what we thought they would do. They came out and just did kind of like predictable doo-wop kind of stuff. You heard it all before. So we came out with our song, which was different, and so we were able to capture more votes because what we were doing had a broader base of appeal. So it just wasn't like, well, we're going to do some black music and all the black people going to get us in. We didn't really think like that. We wanted to do some music that brought everybody, black and white, and we did. So we did the song. We won the $500. We left. We immediately went and got $350 worth of high-grade Colombian weed and smoke. It was red bud too. Yeah, they even had it back then.
So I had first heard you guys' stuff on the Funky 16 Corners compilation some years ago. How did that come about, that kind of rediscovery of the music you guys done in the 60s and 70s?
Well, a lot of that got rediscovered when, at the time, the studio that we recorded all this stuff at was called Omen Studios on 10th Street. And it was owned by a guy named Les Omen. And we were part of the house band for Lamp Records. Me, Matthew Watson, Ricky Jackson, Boogie Townsend, and they would just bring all these groups in. Most of them were kind of doo-wop groups, and they could sing, but they didn't know anything about music and instruments. So we would go in this little back room, we would smoke some weed, they would sing a song, and say, yeah, I got a groove for that. And we would develop a little groove, a little song, and then 2 days later we would go to Omen Studio on 10th Street, and we would record the tracks, and that was how most of that got done, like Somebody Please and all that stuff. It was all done because we were the house band at the time, and Indianapolis was different than it is now. Then you didn't have very many musicians that played popular music. Most of the musicians back then played music of the time period, so a lot of them played different kinds of jazz and blues, but they couldn't play anything outside of what they did, so they weren't very versatile. So we didn't have those limitations. We We played whatever we thought sounded all right. We would just do it. If they brought a fuzz tone in the studio, we didn't question whether or not it was musically valid. You know, we just said, where you plug this thing at? We plug it in, man, stomp on it. It would start squealing. We would get happy. Like, yeah, man, this is really happening, you know. So we didn't have any resistance to change. So whatever evolved, pedals and that sort of thing, we just embraced it. And so it made our jobs easier to be creative. In fact, once we found out what these things would do, we started experimenting. We would go get old tape recorders and get 2 old tape recorders to plug into the inputs, then plug out from the output, from the speaker output into another amp. We would overdrive and overdrive till we got what we thought was sounding hot. And so for us, it was a time of experimentation.
And you guys were all on the same page, or wasn't anybody who had to be like, no, this is it, this is the move right here. Everybody had this similar kind of experimental drive.
They did. In fact, our drummer, Matthew Watson, was really experimental. Matt he would come to your house in the middle of the night, and he would make up all these beats with his mouth. He was like, before they had beatbox, yeah, man, I got this beat, man. Then he would start beating on your furniture with sticks and stuff like that. So he would create beats on almost like way guys used to have beat makers now. He was like that, but we didn't call it a beat maker. He was just a real creative drummer. And so he always had a different idea. So every time we played something, he had a bunch of different rhythmic ideas he wanted to combine with it. So that always kept us fresh.
How did you meet the other musicians from the group? You were a little older than those guys, right?
Yeah, I'm older than John Jackson and Boobie. In fact, when I first started playing with the guys, I was kind of hesitant because the singer, Jimmy Williams, had asked me to play bass. He was playing bass at the time. He said, well, look, man, I don't want to sing and play bass because I'm just getting paid to sing. They got me playing bass too. So he said, man, come on. And so he talked them into hiring me as a bass player. So I did, but when I started playing with them, the first thing I noticed was these guys couldn't play but in E and A. They could only play in these open keys. And I was like, man, I told Jimmy, I said, man, this is a drag. These guys can only play in 2 keys. So they heard my objections and they got better. Everybody except the guitar player, Master Boobie. He was lazy at the time. He didn't want to improve. So we fired him. So he kind of went off into a tangent, and he would hang around the band even though he wasn't a guitar player anymore. And he would just come to the rehearsals and he would bring a big sack of White Castles. And he would eat White Castles and practice. And he would go in the bathroom, eat White Castles, practice. And then after a while, seriously, about 2 months after he did all that, going to the bathroom with the White Castles, man, he came out sounding like Jimi Hendrix. I mean, because what happened was, he didn't have an amp in the bathroom. It was this little bathroom, you know, with the little tile walls and stuff. And he would just go in there, and we would hear him in there, and he would be laughing and stuff like, oh, Lord. And he'd be here just making all these sounds and flushing the toilet, twanging on his guitar. And he got to be really good. And we hired him back because the guy we had hired in his place thought he was cute. He was kind of like, what people would call, we used to call him a pretty boy. And he thought he was cuter than everybody in the band. And he'd be like, yeah, man, you know, why don't you shine your shoes, man? Your pants, your creases is kind of falling, man. You know, he was kind of, and we used to look at him and go, man, look, you ain't my woman, so why don't you tell me how to dress? So anyhow, make a long story short, we fired him and got the original guy back.
There you go. And that's the key sometimes, just the dedication, maybe some White Castle, and desire to get better at it.